KINER'S Korner is brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. Mitsubishi takes you where you want to be. By NatWest USA, the people and the resources you need today. And by Texaco, makers of Texaco Super Unleaded. When you're on the road, trust your car to the products with a star.
And we got a special edition of KINER'S Korner coming your way from Wrigley Field, and we'll have as a special guest Nelson Doubleday, the owner of the New York Mets. We'll look at the standings and also check out what's going on in baseball right down the line. And we'll be back with Nelson Doubleday in just a moment, right after this commercial message. And our special guest on this special edition of KINER'S Korner is Nelson Doubleday. Nelson Doubleday bought the ball club 5 years ago. And Nelson, here you are in a pennant race, and in only 5 years. That's really amazing.
Well, it is, and it's a great tribute to Frank and Al Harrison, Joe McIlvaine, and Lou Gorman, who started it all, for what they've accomplished over these 5 years.
They really have done a job, and of course the Mets are 4 games out. Are you here for moral support?
I'm here because we have some baseball meetings starting tonight, and watching the ball team is much more fun than sitting at a desk.
Well, you've been a baseball fan all your life. There's no doubt about that, and also a sports fan. But here we are, 5 years that you've owned the ball club, an independent race, and of course the Mets are really back to the wall right at this moment, 4 games down to the St. Louis Cardinals, who are playing outstanding baseball. Have you gotten to the point where you're looking toward next year?
Well, we're always looking towards next year, and we're at a point right now where we can't really do much. It's whether a ball bounces one way or whether somebody wins or somebody loses. There isn't much you can do. It just happens day to day. But we're always looking forward, and I think that the thing I'm proudest of is that we promised the fans in New York that we were going to make the team competitive, and I think we fulfilled that promise.
You certainly have done that. Last year, 90 victories, and here this year, so far, 92 victories, and certainly in a pennant race, and the fans certainly have to be happy with the way this ball club has been put together. Of course, you've had some outstanding baseball players. Dwight Gooden would be the first one you think of, also Darryl Strawberry.
That's true, and again, you got to go back to Frank Cashin, because he's the man, and his system found these rookies, and there are more in the system, as we saw the other day with the Doubleday Awards. We've got a pretty good crew of rookies in the minor leagues, and that's a real tribute to Frank and his staff.
Mr. Doubleday, what about the future of baseball? The baseball strike was settled with just 2 days of baseball non-action, and here we are looking at baseball down the line, and you have a game that's probably at its peak right now in the history of the game.
Well, I think that's true, and I think we have more interest in baseball this summer than we've ever had before, and I think it was very important that we all settled that strike as fast as we did. And my hat goes off to the Lee McPhail, who really did all the work for it, and I think it's important. I think the future of baseball is in good hands right now. I think we are addressing ourselves to some cost control problems and really running it as a business as the way it should be run, and I think baseball has a very bright future.
And of course, there's always that dark cloud that's looming over the horizon, the cloud of dope addiction and that sort of thing. That's got to be a problem. It has to be resolved.
Oh, it does, and I think we'll see that the Players Association, the players and the ownership and the management of baseball will all get together and find a way to lick it. It has to be beaten. We have to get the drugs out of baseball.
We're talking with Mr. Doubleday, the president and owner of the ball club, and we'll be back in just a moment right after this commercial message from Texaco. We're talking with Nelson Doubleday, the owner of the New York Mets, and certainly a very happy owner, even though the Mets are trailing by 4. Any special message for today's baseball game?
No, it's just nice to be back in Wrigley Field. The first baseball game I saw with the Mets was here, and it's nice to be back.
Well, you're back here at Wrigley Field, an overcast day, a little bit of sunshine, and the Mets in a must-win situation.
For sure, and I hope they do.
Nelson Doubleday, and we'll be back in just a moment with the standings and also take a look at the games coming up after this message from NatWest. I've got exciting news for you baseball fans, thanks to Purolator Courier.
Ralph, that's Purolator Courier.
Right. One lucky fan and his or her guest will attend the first 2 World Series games, airfare and hotel included. To win, send your name and address on a postcard to Purolator Courier, World Series trip, care of New York Mets, Shea Stadium, Flushing, New York, 11368. Send your entry no later than October 1st. The winner will be announced on KINER'S Korner October 1st. In our special edition of KINER'S Korner here from Wrigley Field prior to the baseball game, We'll take a look at the standings. The St. Louis Cardinals are leading the New York Mets by 4 full games. Cardinals have a record of 96-56. The Mets have a record of 92-60. Montreal 17 games out, Philadelphia 24, and Chicago 24. So the Cubs have something to gain here as they play the Mets, and they could go ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies. Pittsburgh in last place. They trail by 43. In the Western Division of the National League, the Dodgers are leading the Cincinnati Reds by 6, Houston by 11, San Diego by 12, Atlanta by 26.5, and San Francisco by 30. And, of course, the games coming up for the New York Mets all are very important. They have this one here today with the Chicago Cubs. Then they go to Pittsburgh for 3. They'll be playing a night game on Friday night at 7:30, a Saturday afternoon game with Pittsburgh at 3:20, and then a Sunday afternoon game with the Pirates. Then a day off, and then it's the St. Louis Cardinals on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. All those games will be coming your way at 8:30 New York time. And then the Mets, after that series, will return to Shea Stadium, and they'll be taking on the Montreal Expos for the final 3 games of the series. And, of course, the Mets hoping that they will be the big games of the year for the New York Mets. The Cardinals have 10 remaining ball games. They play in Philadelphia, I should say in St. Louis against the Phillies tonight, then a weekend series against the Expos Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon. Monday an off day, then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday they'll be against the Mets and close out their regular season with 3 games against the Cubs at Busch Stadium. Those 3 games with Montreal will be in Montreal. In the National League, the Cincinnati Reds will be playing the Atlanta Braves. It'll be Andy McGaffigan on the mound for Cincinnati, and Steve Bedrosian will be going for the Braves. Then also at Three Rivers Stadium, the starting pitchers for that ball game for the Pirates, it'll be Rick Rhoden on the mound. He's won 9 and lost 14. Montreal Expos will be going with Bill Gullickson. He has a record of 13 and 11. At Busch Stadium in St. Louis, the Cardinals will be going with their left-handed ace, John Tudor. He has a record of 19 and 8 for the year. And Kevin Gross, probably the best pitcher that the Philadelphia Phillies have at this point, with a record of 14 and 11, will be going against the Cardinals. Those are the only games scheduled in the National League. In the American League, the Yankees at Yankee Stadium will be playing the Detroit Tigers. It'll be Bob Shirley on the mound for the Yankees and Walt Terrell going for Detroit. Shirley with a record of 5 and 4, and Walt Terrell with a record of 13 and 10 for the year. At Oakland, in Alameda, then it will be the Oakland A's against the Chicago White Sox. At Arlington Stadium in Texas, it'll be the Texas Rangers against the Minnesota Twins. And then at County Stadium in Milwaukee, it'll be the Milwaukee Brewers against the Baltimore Orioles. At the Kingdome in Seattle, it'll be the Mariners against Kansas City. Of course, a big race going right there against Kansas City against the California Angels. And at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto, Canada, the Blue Jays will be going against the Boston Red Sox. So that's the way it looks as we take a look at the situation. The Mets, of course, are 4 games back of the St. Louis Cardinals, and they'll be going here today with Dwight Gooden on the mound. Dwight with a record of 21 and 4, and going against him will be a right-handed pitcher, Johnny Origo. So that's the story here at Wrigley Field in our special editions. Don't stay tuned for the ball game coming up your way.
KINER'S Korner has been brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. Mitsubishi takes you where you want to be. And by Texaco, makers of Texaco Super Unleaded. When you're on the road, trust your car to the products with a star. Ralph's guest will receive a unique gift pack from Casio containing a mini keyboard print display hand calculator and a 100-metered water sport watch from Casio, a world leader in consumer electronics. And a gift from ATV stores who feature Gabriel's gas rider shocks for superior performance and control under all driving conditions. For Gabriel and auto, truck, and van accessories, shop ATV. Ralph Kiner's Wardrobe by Stanley Blacker. KINER'S Korner produced by Carl Churkin. Directed by Bill Webb. Stage manager, Curtis Reed. Production assistants, Steve Olbaum and Carlos Ortiz.